Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the Alpha Staff webinar series. Today's webinar, Health Advocate, Valuable Resources for Employees and Their Families, is 1 hour long and presented by Patty Mkin from Health Advocate, Alpha Staff's partner in employee assistance programs. Before we begin, I would like to provide a brief technical overview. As you may have noticed, all attendee phone lines are muted and will remain so throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, please enter them via the chat or the Q&A feature as you think of them, or you can wait until the end of the presentation when we open it up for questions at the end. If you can see one of the chat feature or the Q&A, but not the other, feel free to use either one. They're both there available for you. Attendance in today's live webinar is approved for 1 credit with both HRCI and SHRM. At the end of the presentation, I'll share the contact information needed to request the credit codes. That way you guys can just send an email and we'll get those to you. Today's presenter, Patricia G. Imkin, Senior Vice President, Health Advocate. She has been with Health Advocate since the start and has held many leadership roles and is our EAP expert. She earned her bachelor's degree from Loyola University, Maryland. And now I will hand it over to Patty and she'll get us started.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandy. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to present the Alpha Staff EAP, which again is powered by Health Advocate. Brandy, you want to go ahead and go to the second slide? So basically today, we're going to talk about the value of the Employee Assistance Program and really going to look at it in 2 different ways, both certainly to serve your employees and their family members, but also to explain the ways in which we can support you as an organization, both from a manager assistance perspective and then being able to support, God forbid, if there's anything, crisis on the ground as it relates to a critical incident. You go to the next one. So one of the things we want to say right out of the gate is how we define eligibility. So, the EAP, of course, is offered as a free benefit to employees, their spouses, their dependent children, as well as their parents and their in-laws. And we offer that extended eligibility definition, understanding that in today's workforce, so many of us are sandwiched in between our parents and our kids. And quite often, a challenge that a child might be dealing with ends up being an issue with a parent as opposed to one of their very own. So just keep that in mind as we talk about the scope of the EAP program. It does apply to, again, employees, spouses, dependent children, as well as your parents and your in-laws. You can go to the slide 4 there, Brandy. So we'll talk about, the ways in which, we believe Health Advocate is unique. We've got a whole host of digital opportunities for folks to be able to engage with us. But at the end of the day, we really are a high-touch organization. Connecting an individual with a licensed clinician to help support, whatever temporary setback in life that particular member is dealing with, and creating that single point of contact for that interaction. If somebody picks up the phone and calls into the EAP 24/7, 365, during that intake process, that licensed clinician will assess the situation and then talk about the ways in which we can provide support, leveraging a number of different modalities. If you look at slide 5, some of the new enhancements that we're making to our digital environment will be live in the beginning of November. So any Alpha Staff client who has access to our EAP program will see a completely new digital experience. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity today to kind of talk to you about that and show you some of the images of what the new site will bring. But if you go to slide 6, really the value of the EAP is to try to keep, the support for these mental health related issues inside the EAP program. And what I mean by that is, as part of the EAP benefit, each individual has up to 3 visits per issue per member per year. So we really look to try to resolve the issue on behalf of the member inside that EAP environment. And that could be, leveraging coaching and organizational support in a traditional face-to-face environment, or more popular as of late, being able to interact with a clinician via video or chat or even text-based counseling. But the goal, as I mentioned, is to create that, seamless process. So let's say somebody does need to have sessions beyond the 3-visit model. We look to try to, on the front end, vet a provider against whatever network that might be in place. So if somebody's enrolled in the Aetna program, we'll want to make sure that that licensed clinician in our affiliate network is also participating in the Aetna network, should somebody need, 4 and 5 and 6 visits with a particular licensed clinician. But again, the value is really emphasizing the fact that, the visits to these clinicians are indeed free to the individual employee. You can go to slide 7, Brandy. So again, 24/7, 365, the EAP is really meant to provide that in-the-moment telephonic support. So certainly anytime, somebody is in crisis, we want them to pick up the phone and reach out to us. And then they'll have the opportunity through that assessment with that clinician to figure out what is the best avenue for support for that particular individual. Members also have the ability to go right online and schedule and access care from a digital perspective if they want to go that route. Again, become increasingly more popular, providing support, through a video or chat or even text-based counseling. But if you look at slide, 8, we're really talking about, things beyond the traditional avenues that folks historically would associate an EAP program. And what I mean by that is, typically someone will say, geez, if I don't have a drug or an alcohol problem, I don't need the EAP. When in fact, Health Advocate provides much more support as it relates to things like work-life balance and relationship issues and lifestyle coaching. So things that really are beyond, just the classic drug and alcohol issues. Of course, we do provide that support for drug and alcohol related issues, but again, trying to reduce the stigma or eliminate the stigma that is classically associated with an EAP program. Now today, you guys are probably all very aware, the use of mental health services has really skyrocketed across the country. And it, not only goes back to, national tragedies and, things that have occurred in schools and, classrooms and, crime-related issues, but certainly as it relates to, hurricanes. Like, as an example, we've provided a tremendous amount of support, most recently as it relates to folks on the west coast of Florida who were victims of Hurricane Ian. So again, think about us from that perspective, as well as, providing individual member mental health-based support. And then on the other side of the fence, we want to talk about today everything we can do for you as an organization. And here's where we really want you to look at the EAP as a risk management tool for your company. For example, we want your managers and supervisors to know that they can pick up the phone and talk to a licensed clinician on our end about a challenging employee that they may have in their workforce. Ideally, they do that before they talk to the individual. So again, from that risk management perspective, we can provide coaching on how to approach the individual, how to maybe help encourage the individual to seek EAP support, so things of that nature. And then, certainly, as I mentioned, as it relates to any type of critical incident, tragedy on the ground, the EAP is available to be on site, to provide materials to cope with, a death of an employee, an accident, or anything that we would couch as a critical incident. And we've got a whole separate disaster event management team that helps coordinate those with individual employers across the country. You can go to the next slide, Brandy. And then also available online is everything we do from a work-life support perspective. Now, all of these services can also be accessed by simply picking up the phone and calling Health Advocate, but there are some really neat self-service tools that can be found on the website. So there's a whole legal and financial center. There's a whole plethora of resources for child care and elder care. We've got all types of tutorials and webinars that are cataloged and archived on the site. We find a lot of managers and supervisors will take advantage of some of those webinars when conducting training with folks on the ground. And then we've got a great concierge service that's also available to your employees and their family members. And those are around, tough tickets to get, ponies for birthday parties, things of that nature, or we can help facilitate identification of those resources as well. You can go to the next slide, Brandy. So just a little more detail around the legal and the financial services. Of course, there's discounts that apply if somebody retains a legal representation or a financial counselor or expert. So again, just reminding folks, there's some easily downloadable forms, rental agreements, property agreements, wills, bills of sale, things of that nature that folks can access easily themselves. But again, if they need to tap into some type of legal or financial advice, they have the ability to do that at a discount. And then again, if they retain the individual, after they reach out to them initially. We've done a lot of work, Brandy, you can go to the next slide, as it relates to, DEI initiatives, a lot of support for, different sectors of the community. So think about us as a resource. We also make materials available along these lines. So, we're very embracing of, different ethnicities. People may want to see counselors of, certain colors or races and have preferences on, religions and, language capabilities. So we always look to vet our network against the specific need as best as we possibly can within a geographic market for the individual. And along those lines, Brittany, you can scoot forward to slide 13. We've got a massive network of affiliate providers across the country, 62 some odd thousand of them. They're all licensed clinicians who have gone through our credentialing process. But we like to be able to say, we provide a local presence. So national in scope, local in presence, again, as it relates to a different and diverse panel of folks that we can tap into. Certainly if somebody's accessing our MyHealth platform, which gives our members the ability to interface with a clinician digitally, that even opens up additional opportunities for support beyond those things that might be, convenient from a geographic location. And then on 15, you can kind of get a sense of some of the new look and feel of the website. If those of you that may have been out to the Health Advocate environment in the past, you can see we've done a lot of work as it relates to, it's cleaner, much easier to navigate. The things that are front and center, materials that we put out there that are relevant to, again, a national tragedy or some type of event that might have happened that might trigger the need for support within the EAP world. That's front and center for folks to be able to tap into. And we, almost immediately update this web environment as soon as, something like that happens in the market. So Brittany, let's skip forward to slide 17 and talk about what we do from what we couch as a manager assistance program. And again, this is really an opportunity to recommunicate to the managers and supervisors within each of your organizations the value of the EAP. As I mentioned, out on the website, we've got a whole bunch of trainings that are available, for managers and supervisors. And then those same individuals need to be made aware of, the things and the support that we can provide as it relates to a critical incident. So if we look specifically, and you can move forward, Brandy, to 18, at the manager assistance perspective or support tool, again, your managers, your supervisors, anyone within your organization can pick up the phone and talk to a licensed clinician about whatever challenge they might be facing on the ground in their respective environment. Again, we highly encourage individuals to do this. Let us, coach the individual around a particular challenge that the employee might be facing. That protects you as the organization against, somebody may be saying something that, may not be appropriate. The other thing that's also important with the vast array of resources that are available online are all the tutorials and webinars as it relates to manager growth, reasonable suspicion, working in a diverse workforce, things of that nature that might be important skill builders for new managers or new supervisors to take advantage of. And, quite often, let's face it, in today's environment, so many of our managers and supervisors are being promoted because of the success they've had in their respective roles, but they don't really go through any type of formal manager training. So think of Health Advocates resources as a wonderful opportunity to tap into some of those tutorials. We've seen many clients use our webinars and some of our quizzes and things of that nature as part of their management onboarding process. You can go to the next one, Brittany. The other thing that's important for managers and supervisors to know that they too can make referrals into the EAP, and they can do that in an informal fashion. Again, someone they understand is having a challenge, maybe they're going through a difficult relationship, a divorce, and maybe that manager or supervisor is sensitive and reminds the individual that they have access to this free benefit. And in that context, of course, the service is completely confidential. That member is just, or that manager is just making that referral into the EAP environment. And then on the other side of the fence, it may be a manager or a supervisor or a member of your HR team making a formal referral into the EAP as part of a work performance or a requirement, to maintain employment within the organization. In those situations, of course, Health Advocate is then reporting back. We get the members released, and we report back on the individual's compliance. And this is as it relates to maybe, a drug or an alcohol screening or a last chance agreement or, workplace violence or something like that within the protocol of your own environment that you require somebody seek counsel in order to maintain their role within the organization. You can skip to the next one. And then on the, as I mentioned, the critical incident, hopefully you never have one of these. But again, when you do, rest assured that Health Advocate is able to respond very quickly, not only, with an on-site presence if that's appropriate for the particular issue, but also with supporting, materials specific to the individual needs. Managers, supervisors, yourselves, simply pick up the phone and call the very same EAP number, and you will get routed to the appropriate place to help mandate or coordinate, I should say, our response to some type of critical incident. And on slide 21, Brandy, you can get a sense of kind of what that flow looks like. Our clinician will make an assessment together with the caller around what's the most appropriate from a response perspective. Examples of, you've got a long-term employee who had a long-term illness who has now finally passed away. Maybe being on the ground the next day is not appropriate. It might be better to be available when, folks come back from the funeral or days after that. Different from, somebody who gets killed tragically on the way to work. We want to make sure we've got somebody on the ground as quickly as possible. So together they make that assessment around what's appropriate for us to be on the ground, if that's an even appropriate response. Maybe it's just supplying materials to support whatever tragedy might have occurred. And then, you can step forward there, Brandy, to slide 23. What's important is to keep the message alive through a comprehensive communication strategy. Now, I know Alpha staff makes available each of the flyers that we send out on a monthly basis. I'm more than happy to add folks to, newsletter distribution list. If that's something you would like to do. But again, we really want to make a concerted effort in partnering with you around the constant reminder to individuals who are eligible that the benefit exists. And basically, you name it, we have it. So we can support, all types of initiatives, certainly as it relates to both, English and Spanish. We've got, tremendous capabilities from a language perspective, within our call center environment. So it makes, communicating with Health Advocate, very easy. If you look at slide 24, we recently sent out, a bunch of communications about, domestic violence. We did a lot about, World Mental Health Day. You might have seen some of that this past Monday. So again, trying to take advantage of, national health observances that are appropriate. A lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, around the holidays. So you'll see some reminders around the use of the EAP and some of the benefit, taking 1 minute from me, type of thing. Videos, a lot of that tutorials are out available on our website. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. Brittany, I'm happy, or Brandy, excuse me, I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got any through the chat box.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have any questions, we want to invite you to go ahead and ask those. You can use the Q&A or the chat box, whatever you prefer, whatever you have access to, either one. But in the meantime, I do have a couple questions. If just some things I noticed that might help me and my clients and others, that may need this. So Patty, my first question is, if something happens at the workplace, if there is a workplace death, what is the requirements? Is there anything, any reason you guys would not be able to provide on-site support, or are there any basically stipulations to receive that on-site support?
No, we do obviously charge to come on site, and there is a $285 charge to come on our site, per hour. But again, that is all worked out, with the individual DEM expert who's on the other end of the phone should a tragedy occur or some type of accident. But we try our very best to respond, same day, if not the next day, to have somebody on site to be able to brief individuals. We can meet, stay in a conference room and have people come in, privately, one-on-one. We'll do group sessions. It really is dependent upon the environment. And in some cases, we're there and it's just a feel good that somebody is available, and we don't necessarily talk to a whole heck of a lot of people, but there's value in having somebody available there. And in others, we're talking to a lot of folks, and they turn around and seek counsel direct through the EAP on their own and take advantage of those free face-to-face or digital sessions.
Okay, perfect. We have one question that just came in. If there are layoffs in the company, how long after the employee leaves does the EAP cover?
It's roughly 60 days when someone leaves the organization, and I would highly encourage you to alert people that they have that benefit to be able to access. We can also oftentimes help provide support around job opportunities, and people are talking about financial concerns. We've got some great budgeting calculators and some things that they can take advantage of on the WorkLife site for somebody that's newly lost their position. So that is a great opportunity for folks to take advantage of the EAP.
Okay, thank you. And for people to take advantage of the EAP, if they're not tech savvy, don't want to, go through the computer to log in or anything like that, and they just want to call a number, can they call that 800 number to get to anything they have questions about, the financial, the mental health, the LGBTQIA plus information, and everything? Could that be?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. So it's one number is the gateway to all things EAP. So WorkLife support is the same number a manager or supervisor would call around a manager assistance question or any type of training question. And certainly it's the same number as we've been talking about any type of critical incident support.
Okay, perfect. And I have just two more questions. And if anybody else has questions while we're going through this, definitely put them in that chat box or that Q&A feature. In the meantime, you mentioned that there are tutorials and skill builders for new managers and other positions like that. Are those something that you would recommend that manager or employers use in like a curriculum when they hire a new manager? You recommend, hey, go take a look at this website, do this skill builder, see if you have any questions, or would that be something you would do if, in response to a situation?
I tell you, we see a lot of clients leverage those resources to do exactly as you described, Brandy. So a newly hired, newly promoted individual who, again, of course, is probably or was, very good at their job individually, but has never been a manager before, right?
Mhm.
And they're needing now to interface with individuals in a very different fashion than they did as a coworker. So yes, we're seeing more and more clients take advantage of those resources on the website, which of course are included. They're not any additional dollars for any client to pay, and they can take advantage of those at any time and as often as possible.
Awesome. Okay. And then the last question that I had is regarding the formal EAP. So I have a lot of
Yeah.
clients, and I know that we work with a lot of clients that sometimes employees, we all know this, don't want help sometimes, and that's just because they don't know how to get it, or they don't, know they have these resources available. And that's whenever we would pass along that EAP information. But as far as the formal EAP referral, what would be a situation where you would recommend us using that formal EAP?
Yeah, I think, this is really where, typically HR is involved,
Mhm.
right? Somebody has had, an incident on the ground, a complaint from a coworker, any type of threat of violence, harm to someone else or themselves in the workforce. Those tend to be, formal referrals. Or, certainly if there's an environment where there's drug testing going on, and somebody fails a drug test, typically that's a formal referral. So where HR is involved, and as I mentioned, it's a threat in the workplace, and as part of that individual's continued ability to maintain a position at the organization, the company is requiring that they go through the EAP program and be evaluated and seek counsel from a licensed clinician. So that's what we would couch as a formal referral. And of course, every employer has a different set of requirements and individual policies around what constitutes a formal referral or a mandated referral, if you will. But whatever a client chooses to go down that route, what we do is get the individual employee's consent, meaning they have to authorize us to report back, and that's typically part of the the requirement from the employer's perspective. We don't report back the specifics of what was discussed in the counseling session, just around the individual's compliance, so that the employer can make a decision on whether or not that individual, can come back to work when they have that, licensed clinician, that professional's assessment about the individual's, mental health state, if you will. So,
Okay.
again, formal referrals, tend to be, certainly less common.
Mhm.
We see more of that informal referral where you just understand or are aware of a situation and you want to remind a member that, the service exists. I mean, we've seen a lot of formal referrals around, moms and dads who just sent their kids back to school, or they just moved their first born into college, and now they've got loneliness and stress and those types of related issues. The EAP is a wonderful resource for that. Certainly, as folks are now moving into the holidays, it may be a first holiday without a loved one, and how do you get through that? Or first holiday, post my divorce, or things of that nature. So again, the EAP is really a wealth of support for individuals, and we really want to be as mindful as possible to make sure that people are aware of the benefits.
Right, and I agree. And then one thing I would say about the formal EAP referral, very good resource, but definitely make sure if that is part of your process, it's part of your process for everyone who's going through the same issue or whatever that you're being, the same throughout for all of your employees. So definitely to keep that in mind. But I think that was all
That's
of
correct.
yeah, I think that was all of
I
my
was just going to say on that
questions.
note,
Mhm.
yeah, I was just going to say on that note, Brandy, you're absolutely right. And, the formal referrals are really a direct violation of a policy. So the employer has a policy that they have in place as it relates to a whole host of, conduct related issues. And, to your point, it's got to be applied across the board for every individual that may be in violation. So, you're 100% right. It's a policy violation against, your handbook as an example, as it relates to employees' conduct.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. And I can speak for the EAP myself. I have taken my 3 visits. I think that it's very helpful for anyone, especially just to have someone to talk to anytime you need something. If you're feeling stressed or even if you're okay and you just want to check in with yourself, that is always okay too. It's always good to listen to yourself and how you're feeling. So use it, you have it, your employees have access to it. Why not is my last plug. But unless anyone has any other questions, I am going to go ahead and move on. If you guys would like copies of today's presentation, as well as the HRCI and SHRM credit codes, send an email to hrsc@alphastaff.com, or you can call that 800 number as well. And we also send out after you get off of this meeting, you'll see a little survey. We're looking for information for next year. We're looking to host more webinars, and we want to know what you guys want to see and what you're interested in, some of the issues or particular topics that you may need additional support in. So once you finish this webinar, go ahead and fill out that survey. If you have any ideas, we'd love to hear them. And in the meantime, feel free to email the hrsc@alphastaff.com to get copies of today's presentation or those credit codes. And just a reminder to mark your calendar for next time. On the 20th, we're going to be doing management series number 5, managing performance effectively, with our host Cindy Williams, the Director of Client Services, as well as Tony Solano, Human Resources Account Manager. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Patty and Health Advocate, for your time and continued support. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys again next time.